Have you ever wondered what would happen if the ancestors of the whales never went back into the ocean? How would these majestic creatures look and fit into an ecosystem on land? Well, dear viewer, you don't have to wonder, because they technically already exist. That's right. It's a fantastic, majestic animal that is instantly recognisable to everyone. And that is, of course, the hippopotamus, the African murder tank. So, without delay, let's jump in and join our new hippo as it enters the world. Hippos are now found in sub-Saharan Africa, near and often in large rivers and lakes, with their habitat ranging from the far tip of South Africa all the way up to Sudan and following the Nile through Egypt. However, these days the range is more scattered. Whilst they prefer fresh bodies of water, they have been known to settle into salt water. This is particularly common in populations in West Africa. But that's not where you're born. You're born on the lake, somewhere near the Tanzanian border. And that's you. A 55 kilogram cinnamon roll of flesh. You've been born in the water, and the only hippo in the area is your mum, which makes bonding easy. It also helps by the fact that you are a single child, unless you're one of the rare hippos who had a twin. But that issue should be dealt with sooner or later, because the odds of both of you surviving are incredibly low. After around 2 weeks, both the mother and offspring should have been printed on one another. But before we get to that point, you still haven't taken your first breath, because African hippos typically give birth underwater. So I think it's probably worth rectifying that. So what you do is you use your front legs to push up from the riverbed, with mum acting as a support. There you go. I'm sure we can both agree that that's much better. What you might have figured out is that despite spending much of your life in the water, your species actually can't swim. This is because of how dense your bones are. So instead, they will gallop along the bottom of the body of water. So, for you as a young hippo, this may be a bit of a challenge as you're not as tall as a fully grown adult. However, as you grow and as you get older, this will become easier. Once your mum has introduced you to the rest of the herd, it's strongly advised that you stay close to mum, mainly because hippos can be pretty temperamental, and a male would jump at the chance to be able to breed with another female. And considering your mum won't breed until you've left, if a male could speed this up, they'll jump at the opportunity. And his best bet to do this would be to silently off you when your mum leaves the water to graze on the river banks, although she will typically regularly return, allowing you to nurse. And nursing doesn't have to happen above water, as hippos have adapted to underwater feeding by sealing both their ears and nose holes before diving underwater, similar to a submarine. But these underwater feeds and feeds in general are often quick, because infant hippos can only hold their breath for 2 minutes. After a month, the hippo calf will start to begin grazing. But this is literally just so they can get their technique down. You're still eating what mum eats, and you're also eating her poo, because you have no bacteria in your digestive system. So you need to sort that out before you can actually start eating some solid food. So, hippo calves will start properly grazing at around 5 months old, but they will continue to keep feeding from the mother until they're around 8 months old, at which point they will be fully weaned off their mum. But they're not independent yet, and will stay close to their mum and the herd, partly because they're still vulnerable to attacks from predators, such as crocodiles. Although, to be frank, a crocodile would have to be pretty stupid to think that it could get away with murking a hippo calf, and mum not finding out and going full Liam Neeson. Aside from this threat, and also the occasional lion, hippos are often left alone by most animals, because no one wants to deal with the heat of a walking tank horse. That's why, when they come on land for their night feeds, they're usually left alone. Although, this may have something to do with the fact that they come out during the dark, and are thus shielded by the night. But at least they're able to feed in peace, and they'll eat basically any plants that make the mistake of growing in their path. And, as you can imagine, for such a large animal, they need to eat a lot, with an adult needing to eat a minimum 40 kilograms of veg per day. Although, they are not above varying their diet with a bit of meat, either from carcasses close to the shore, or unfortunate antelope that hippo has just decided to murk, and, as mentioned, the occasional smaller hippo. Which is, funnily enough, is what happened to your twin. You may be surprised to know that the hippo's main incisors and canines play little role in their grazing habits, and it's more a combat and display thing. As, when two hippos decide to go at it, their mouths will open up to 150 degrees, revealing their sharp teeth, and then they will battle it out, with their jaws locked with one another, attempting to make the other back down. Usually, these battles cause significant wear and damage to both the hippos, with a lot of blood being spilt. However, their front teeth are constantly regrowing, and the hippo's large body helps to reduce the damage from these clashes. The winner of this battle will become the dominant male, and as a result will have breeding rights within the herd, which will often number somewhere between 10 to 15 individuals. But there have been exceptions or circumstances where these herds have reached up to 150 individuals. Females, as you may imagine, will engage in combat far less than males. However, they are known to go toe-to-toe with a chap to prevent him from offing her calf. Although, the weird thing about this whole scenario is that once the hippos are out of the water, all the territorial behaviour pretty much evaporates, and everyone seems to be pretty chill. It is also when hippos are on land that we get this lovely behaviour. Now, I know you probably have a lot of questions. Specifically, why the hell are they doing that? Well, it depends. For a chap, it's to mark their territory, so threats know not to get too close. This is not only for other hippopotamus, but also other species found in the area. Although, for a female, it can either be a way to ensure that their offspring's immune system has built up enough to be able to digest solid food, as previously mentioned, or she may simply do it to demonstrate her affection for the male. Which I mean, it's one way of showing your love for one another. Most people, it's flowers or a nice dinner. Others, it's a nice walk on the beach with a sunset. For hippos, it's a face full of Truly, the height of romance. And, in case you're wondering, the male that loses the battle for the herd will usually return to the water, often either attempting to rejoin the herd, finding a different herd that he can take over, or joining one of the many bachelor herds, until they've either grown larger and are able to challenge the dominant male for control of the herd, or they are just simply too old, at which point it's literally just them chilling with the boys. That, or, admittedly, they may just end up being killed by lions, or dying of natural causes. It's really 50-50. As for the victor, with a face full of manure, they will usually do their mating during the dry season, and they will do so in the water. And if successful, gestation will usually last for around 227 days at least, to a maximum of 240 days. At which point, the cycle of life will continue, with both males and females being able to breed well into their 40s, but some hippos have been able to known to live into their 50s. As I mentioned earlier, the range of the hippos has significantly reduced as humanity has developed. However, it should be noted that in the regions that they are still found naturally, their population is thought to be stable, with estimates placing their total wild population at somewhere between 115,000 to 130,000. But one of the biggest threats to hippos is their conflicts with humans, as hippos aren't scared of humans, and as a result, an average of 500 people are killed by hippos per year in Africa. Because again, and I cannot state this enough, they're built like tanks and can run a hell of a lot faster than you can. And this number is likely going to increase as there is increased developments and human activity in the more rural regions of Africa, which are often the regions where the hippos are found. There is also the effect of drought, which, let's be frank with ourselves, will have a pretty significant impact on an animal which relies pretty heavily on water to exist. Still, there is work being done to ensure that hippos and people can live peacefully with one another. And there is significant focus now on helping the pygmy hippo, which I failed to mention during this video, but it's a far smaller version of the hippo found in West Africa. And also, they have a far smaller population than their larger cousins. Now, here's some pretty weird stuff, right? So, when I said hippos are found in Africa exclusively, I wasn't lying per se, but I also wasn't telling the whole truth. Hippos have been found roaming the wilds of Colombia. This is because the famous drug lord Pablo Escobar had a private zoo, which I may talk about one day because that story is wild. But among the residents of the zoo, there was 4 common hippos who had been brought to Colombia in the 1970s. Now look, I'm not going to go into the whole story of Pablo Escobar because it's outside the scope of this channel, and to be quite frank with you, I don't fully understand it, but I don't know, dude, just like watch Narcos or pick one of the many documentaries on the man here on YouTube. So you have a better idea of what this guy was like and what the story was going on there. But, and this is a bit of a spoiler, when he was forced to leave his main house, the Colombian authorities seized many of the animals on his property, with the exception of the hippos, because they were too difficult to move. So the 4 hippos were left to roam the estate. However, one day they managed to break out, and as a result of a failure to capture them, their descendants now populated at a rapid rate. One of the reasons for this rapid population growth is likely the fact that they're breeding at a far earlier age, because there isn't a large enough pre-established population of males to limit when other males come into sexual maturity. So, in the around 40 years since the death of Pablo Escobar, the Colombian hippo population is now thought to be a maximum of 212 individuals, with this number likely rising, which is having a significant negative effect on the Colombian ecosystem, because there is literally nothing that can stop them. Although, a similar thing could have happened in the US state of Mississippi, as in 1910 it was thought that it would be a good idea to release hippos into that great state, with one of the main reasons for this being to kill the water lioncynthe, which is a type of flower not native to the region. And the secondary benefit of this is that they could be exploited for their meat, which would have helped to solve the state's meat shortage. Fortunately, it never passed, as I'm sure we can all imagine the environmental impacts of this would have been disastrous. And also, if it was successful and it did pass, there were plans to release rhinos, water buffaloes, Manchurian pigs, and also yaks into that state. So probably for the best that didn't pass. But it is still wild to think about that could have happened. But on the whole, hippos are an incredibly fascinating animal. I mean, they're truly unique. You look at them and you look at their skulls and you think, man, that looks like something that shouldn't exist. That looks like something in a science fiction. And I think, despite the fact that they kill people, they're a vital part of their ecosystem, helping to spread seeds up and down the rivers in which they're found, and also ensuring that the ground is properly grazed. And as a result, they are vital to the ecosystems in which they're found in and must be protected. However, with an animal like this, it is important that you work with local communities and the people that live with these animals to ensure that they are willing and they are able and have the capacity to continue to live their lives and also allow nature to exist. And on that note, I thank you for watching today's video on these murder horses. It's been an interesting one to look into. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here today, do me a solid, press that like and subscribe button. It's greatly appreciated. And if you'll allow me before you go, I recommend this video on the snake slaying bird for you to watch next. But if you choose not to, until we meet again, remember, you cannot outrun a hippo, so if you are being chased by one, climb up a tree, wash your face, and I will see you in the next one.